One of the greatest pains in life is comparing yourself to others. Scrolling through social media, we often see only the highlights, smiles, success, and moments of glory. Then, almost unconsciously, we start to feel that our own lives are small and meaningless. The more we look, the heavier our hearts grow, until we lose faith in ourselves. What we forget is that behind those perfect pictures often lie struggles, loneliness, and burdens that never get posted. Comparison leads us astray. Self-acceptance gives us true strength. Jason was a kind, hard-working boy, always ready to lend a hand. He lived in a small village where everyone knew each other. But that closeness also made it easier for Jason to compare himself to others. At school, he studied diligently, but his grades never seemed to match the smartest kids in class. Seeing them receive awards filled him with sadness. On his way home, he would pass the large house of a wealthy neighbor, then glance at his family's modest home and sigh. Even when he played with other kids who were faster, stronger, or more athletic, Jason felt like he was falling behind. Those comparisons clung to him day after day. At first it was just a passing sadness, but gradually it grew into a shadow he couldn't shake. Jason lost focus in his studies, became discouraged, and blamed himself constantly. A heavy thought echoed in his mind: I'll never be as good as the others. I'm just weak and worthless. The truth was, many people in the village admired Jason for being polite, kind, and helpful, but he couldn't see that. His eyes were fixed only on what others had that he lacked. The more he compared, the darker life seemed. One quiet afternoon, Jason sat by the stream, lost in his thoughts. He no longer played with friends the way he used to. At that moment, an old woman, known throughout the village for her wisdom and kindness, happened to walk by. Seeing Jason's sadness, she approached gently and asked what troubled him. Unable to hold it in, Jason poured out his heart. He spoke of feeling inferior, of always comparing himself to others, and of losing faith in who he was. The old woman listened patiently, then smiled warmly. Instead of lecturing him, she simply said, "Tomorrow, I'll take you to a place where you'll find the answer yourself." Jason was puzzled, but her calm gaze reassured him. The next morning, he followed her to a garden hidden behind a hill. It was a lush place, full of life and color, trees reaching for the sun. Slowly, the old woman pointed them out one by one. "Look at that tall tree," she said. "It doesn't give fruit, but its shade offers rest for everyone on hot summer days." A few steps later, she pointed at a mango tree heavy with fruit. "This one feeds children with its sweetness and gives families something to sell at the market." Then she plucked a leaf from a small bush near the ground. "And this plant isn't tall or fruitful, but its leaves heal sickness and save lives." Jason listened closely, his eyes brightening. The old woman smiled. "Now tell me, Jason, if we compare the tall tree to the mango, or the mango to this healing bush, does it make sense? Each has its own purpose, its own value. Together they make the garden whole. People are the same. Comparing yourself only brings pain. Appreciating who you are, that's the path to growth." Jason stood in silence, something stirring inside him. It felt as if a door had opened to a new way of seeing life. Then the woman told him another story. There was once a camel, strong and enduring, able to cross thousands of miles of desert. It survived the blazing sun, days without water, and remained a faithful companion to nomads. But imagine if that camel longed to swim like a dolphin. It wouldn't last long, would it? On the other hand, dolphins leap gracefully through the ocean waves. But if one tried to walk the desert sands, how long would it survive? She looked into Jason's eyes and said gently, "Every creature has its own place, its own strength. The camel doesn't need to be a dolphin, and the dolphin doesn't need to be a camel. People are no different. You have your own path. If you waste your energy envying others, you'll lose the very strength that makes you unique." Jason sat quietly, but inside, it was as if a flame had been lit. Her words weren't just a story, They were a mirror reflecting his hidden pain. From that day on, Jason began to see life differently. He no longer spent his days chasing after the achievements of his friends or envying the wealth of neighbors. Instead, he asked himself, "What are my strengths? What can I do well?" He realized he was patient and diligent. While others often gave up easily, Jason could stick to a task for hours. He started helping his parents more, studying on his own without worrying about grades, and appreciating what he already had: a warm home, a loving family, and a kind heart that people cherished. Time passed, and Jason's efforts bore fruit. His focus and persistence brought him small victories, then larger ones. He grew stronger in his studies, more skilled in helping with village tasks. People began to admire him not just for his abilities, but for the determination and reliability he now radiated. Jason, the boy once burdened by comparison, had found his own path forward. His perseverance turned him into a role model for others. Years later, when Jason had grown into a respected young man, villagers often asked him for the secret to his success. He would smile calmly, his eyes steady and full of faith. Never compare yourself to others. Each of us has a path, a season to shine. Chase someone else's shadow, and you'll only find pain. But embrace your own path, and you'll discover your true strength. His words inspired many young people in the village. They began to rethink their own lives, not with envy but with encouragement and support for each other. Jason knew then that happiness doesn't come from being better than someone else. It comes from walking your own road with patience and faith. And that, he realized, was the greatest gift the wise old woman had given him, a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his life.